And welcome back to the Midday Show. I am Jeff Everett. He is Mark Messina. We are recovering from the holidays. Stories, some stuff we noticed over the weekend. There's a lawsuit over Heinz mac and cheese. I want to talk to you about it, the step-by-step procedure, whether or not she has a case for $5 million. And then I thought it'd be fun. We haven't talked about football in a bit. Obviously, the AP poll stuff, college football, we've got some games coming up. Canton's going to be nearby. Southern Columbia is still going. So I thought we'd dive into a little bit of football forecasting as well. Mark, how are you feeling today?
Recovered?
Welcome. We're back. How was your holiday? By the way, we probably went 5 full days. There was a text here or there, but we probably spoke the least we've spoken in probably 2.5, 3 years. Is that a fair thing to say?
And it was delightful,
yeah.
wasn't it?
Is that why you feel recovered? Is that why you picked that word?
So here's my question, because you're from the Great White North. You grew up on a farm.
Yes.
Today, back when we were kids, this was the first day of hunting season. The Monday after thing, first day of rifle season.
Okay.
Now it starts on Saturday. Is it fair to say that the people that are still in the woods today that haven't they suck at hunting?
This is what I will say. It's a little bit of a bell curve. The people that are out today have had bad luck, or they're really good at it, and thus they have passed up on some that others would have just jumped on. There's really good hunters in the woods today because they're not just hunting. They are basically stalking's not necessarily the right word, but they have been like watching their game trails. They have been like seeing, I want this buck, not this buck. This buck's a little young. This buck's mature. They're holding out for the deer that they want. And that's why they're in the woods today.
And I totally get that. What percentage?
Okay.
Would you guess, and this is purely a guess, so what percentage of hunters?
Okay.
Because I don't know if there's any more. Most hunters are seasoned hunters.
Sure.
Even if they're 20, they've been going out for years. How many of them go out on the first day with that aspect of, if it doesn't have 4 points, if it doesn't have 6 points, if it doesn't have
less than more? I think age comes into play. I think too, like, are you stocking the fridge? Are you not stocking the fridge? There's a lot of stuff that goes, do you have multiple tags or not? Right? Like there's a lot of stuff.
Multiple tags is a good issue.
There's a lot of different things that go into it. I will say this. I think there are more people that are going out, and really it's a feeling. It's the juices start flowing, the deer's in front of you. And really at that point, like you might have gone out and said like nothing smaller than a 6, nothing smaller than an 8, nothing smaller than 10. But once it walks in front of you and the juices are flowing and it's there, I wonder how many people kind of go back on the initial plan, because it for anyone who like deer fever, I'm sure people have heard it who have never hunted before. It is a real thing. Like when you're out and a deer actually comes out in front of you and there is a chance that is the deer. I mean, you feel it. Like internally, you shake a little bit, you heat up a little bit.
I feel that.
It's a real thing.
I feel that when the deer jumps in front of my car. That I've had deer fever.
But isn't that more fear? That's more
Whatever.
Deer fear.
I have the adrenaline went up, the profanity went up, all those things at the same time. So I know a little bit about what you're talking about.
Have you ever seen the hunting videos where after someone gets one and they're like trying to hold their phone or hold their camera and they just can't? Like you're literally shaking because they.
So here's my next question.
Okay.
If you go out, and when's the last time you went deer hunting?
4 years ago. 3 years ago.
So you're not really the right person to talk to.
It was before COVID.
Because
it would have been right before COVID.
Yeah, for the people who like this is the greatest time of year.
Right.
If you go out the first day of rifle and you have one tag and it is 6:30 in the morning. And a pretty good one walks by.
Sure.
Do you shoot it? And then figure like you can help people, you can walk with people, you can be on the drive, you can do other, or do you pass it up and be like, I don't want to be done in an in 2 hours. Like, I have 2 weeks of this.
I don't know if it's being done as much as it's, do you think you'll find something better?
So you're saying if a really, really nice buck comes by in a half hour,
Yeah.
nobody shoots it and then is unhappy that they're done hunting?
No, because there's a lot of winters you go by and you don't get the deer you
Okay.
want. You know what's really like that is bear hunting. Like if you see a bear, most of the time you take the bear, more times than a deer, because you just don't
You're never
know.
gonna see another one.
I mean, there's some hunters that will tell you like they will go a decade plus without even seeing a bear.
Yeah, I can imagine.
So
It's just such a fact because I don't hunt. So the psychology of it, because I know for a lot of people, this is, especially a lot of people in our area. This is such a, I don't want to say, it's almost a holiday in itself.
Yes, you like dating in psychology. Here's the best way that I can explain.
Wait, I like dating?
You like dating in psychology, the conversations. You like talking about like relationships. And
oh, yes. I like the conversations.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have heard it explained this way before. I'd like to take credit for this. This is not my thoughts. I've heard it expressed before. It's kind of like the first time you're really like hanging out or hooking up with somebody. And sometimes the first time doesn't take very long, but it was still fantastic. And it was still great. That's what it's like when you get the deer early in the morning on the first day. Sure, you go home and you wanted it to last longer, like all that, but essentially, like you got what you went for. And like,
I understand.
Okay.
No, I get that.
That's the PC version of the conversation.
It is a good analogy. I get that.
Okay.
No, and I'm guessing too.
Do you have any interest in going? Like
hunting?
Has it ever?
Oh God, no.
Really? Not even just like going to like just you don't even have to shoot the gun. Just like sitting in the hut and just kind of like experience. No. Really.
Oh, I've gone to hunting cabins to play cards.
No, I know that. I'm not talking about the cabin, but I'm saying like the tree stand or in the hut on the ground. Like you've never had.
This is going to sound very unmanly. I don't like dead things.
You've told me this before.
I don't like blood. I don't. Like there are a few things I could not watch someone gut a deer. I would puke.
Okay.
So there's nothing of it, and I don't like being cold.
Okay.
I would I like to hike through the woods.
Okay.
If there's no chance of blood or guts or messiness or death or anything like that, then I'm all in.
Interesting.
But that kind of goes against the whole hunting part.
No, I get what you're saying. It's interesting. You know what's funny? More and more women and more girls are picking it up now as well.
I think, yeah, I mean, I guess just in your family.
Yeah.
If it was just part of your life, it was part of your life.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I with Instagram and with Facebook and stuff, you see the people who got them.
My cousin Carly got one. I'll shout out to Carly real quick. Cousin Carly, 17. I think she's 17 now. Still in high school, and she was out and she got, I believe, an 8-point. I saw the pictures of it yesterday.
Yeah, and I'm sure, especially from an older person, that if you did get one I've always wondered that if you get one really early, is it just like, this is what I've equated it to. It's like, you meet the love of your life in 9th grade. No. And you met those people who've been dating since high school.
Yeah.
And you're like, there's something great about that, but there's something sad about that.
The difference with this is usually you can get multiple tags. There's multiple seasons. Like a lot of people who hunt deer.
They got one in archery.
Well, and it's not the only thing they hunt too. There's other things. So I think, and it's annual, so it comes, but you're gonna.
And I'm sure you can go help. You can go walk with people. You can go sit. You like, especially younger kids who've never got one.
Yeah, you can organize a push and help people out if you.
So I'm guessing, but it would just, I don't know. I could. You kind of wait all year. You buy the gear. You got your tree, or not only your tree. You've got the trail cam. I couldn't think of the word, and all this stuff, and then it could be over in 45 minutes.
I think I would be fascinated to just have you experience it, because I think, I'm trying to think how to say this. There are certain aspects of it that I think people who, when you've never done it before, I'm not saying they fall in love with it, but I'm saying you go and then you begin to realize like, oh, I get it. Like, I wouldn't love it. Like, I don't want to do it again, but like you leave the woods and you're like, I understood. Like I totally get why there are people that literally schedule half their year around this thing. I really believe that if you experienced it.
There's still a lot of blood.
There's something very, primal's too simple of a word. There's something very innate about like the human experience of going out and hunting something. And again, I'm not implying everyone will love it. What I am implying is like once you're out there and you're sitting, I think for a lot of people, a light bulb would kind of go off of like, oh, I wouldn't want to do this all the time, but I understand how people get into this. Because you do, like, this is a bad example. A lot of times when I would go hunting with my dad, seeing the deer was not the most exciting part. It was having a bobcat walk 15 feet in front of you, right? Like it was watching a porcupine climb up a tree from 20 yards away. Like seeing like just seeing things that you never innately
No, I get that part.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I guess the point that you're kind of making, I'm kind of making is it feels like this 3 minutes is like the totality of like see deer, kill deer, and then it's done and over with. And I guess what I'm saying is like, to me, the experience is so much more. It's the before and it's the after. You're implying what happens when the before is taken away from you. Like if you walk out and you sit down and all of a sudden it's 7 a.m. and there's the deer and you got it on the opening day. Did it lose its mystique or did it take some of the experience away is what you're implying?
I think it has to.
No, it's a good question. I would say this, because it's annual, I wonder if it's all right if you're getting the deer you want.
It would be interesting to talk to, these people, because I'm sure the hunters who've been doing it have had those years.
Sure.
Where a deer came up and tapped them on the shoulder right when they started.
Sure.
And then there's where they didn't see anything the whole time.
Well, one of the craziest things, when you're 13, 14, like the first time, and by the way, people go well before. They don't hold the gun, but I mean, there's 6, 7, 8-year-olds like out there sitting with their parents. The first time you experience it, it is kind of crazy because if you're out before dawn and it's dark out, and all of a sudden, like you just start hearing the faint pops, and it's not even bright out. So you're exactly right. Like there are people that are on their way, like to the stand or where they're going, and they don't even make it there.
Right.
And they just stumble across what it is they were looking for. And it is a unique experience the first time you're sitting in the woods. It's not even bright out yet, and you just hear like every 2 minutes or so, just this faint pop. And you just kind of know people are starting to see.
I would also be a much better early evening hunter than a morning hunter.
Yeah, you don't like to get up.
Mornings, and although I don't sleep anymore, so I guess it doesn't really matter because I just lay in bed. But yeah, getting out of bed at a really early hour just doesn't seem fun to me at all.
There's some stuff, the cold, getting up early, the preparation. I mean, there are some things for sure that
there's a lot of work.
I could see how you could be deterred. Is that a fair way to put it?
Yes.
How you could be deterred.
Yes.
How'd your holiday go? We didn't really get to talk about our holidays. All the kids were back?
It was good. All the kids were home.
Okay.
My one daughter was. It's just weird to see how different schools and different colleges and handle stuff. And my one daughter was literally home for 72 hours. But it was good. There's just. Well, this is a much deeper answer than you were expecting. I realized this break because this is the first. I have an older daughter that's a junior at Pitt, and then a freshman, and so it's the first. It's the first year we've had 2 kids away, and I only have 1 kid at home. And I just realized there's just something about them being in the room that is it's just nice, and there's no other word than nice. It's not exciting, but just sitting there watching Jeopardy or whatever the heck we're doing and just having them around with stupid little mindless conversation. And it's just nice. But there's a realization that this is home.
Okay.
And this will always, at least for now, this will always be home.
Okay.
But it's not where their life is anymore.
Okay.
And that hit me this time.
Okay.
Because it's the first time my 2 daughters have been together since August. It's the first time the one daughter had been home since August. The other one was home for fall break. And you're just like, hey, I don't, next summer She's staying at Pitt and doing some sort of internship in the lab.
Okay.
She's a lab nerd. And
But your point is like their acquaintances are not their acquaintances. Like their friends are not necessarily people that they know.
yes.
Like they come back and they do, even within their own conversations, there's probably a very different world that they're talking about than in the past.
Yes. And they come back and they see their friends and they're like, oh, so-and-so is going to be here and we're going to go for lunch and then we're going to do this and we're going to see. But then they all scatter again. It's almost like football, like huddle up and now we go.
Okay.
And, her life is there and her life is there. And they're not planning anything back in Montoursville.
Uh-huh.
They're planning everything that they've got there. And then they know they'll be home for Christmas.
Okay.
And so that was a weird, because then on the backside of college, who knows where they end up?
Sure.
And they could end up here, they could end up there, they could end up wherever. But it was, and it's that weird, and I probably never thought of it before because I was never a parent at this age before, but it's still home. It's clearly still home.
Sure.
Because when they're at school, where I'm going home, where are you from, and all this stuff. But it's still not where their life is. It is now not where their life is, especially even just for my daughter who's a freshman up at Vassar, like that's her world now.
Sure.
And that's where her friends are, and they have plans, and they're doing this. Oh, next summer we're doing this, and where do they live in the Carolina? And it was. I don't even know what word to describe it. It wasn't like a bucket of cold water because it wasn't.
Okay.
It wasn't like hurtful, but it just kind of sunk in. And you're like, wow, this is this is home, but they're just visiting.
Home is no longer the sun, is what it sounds like to me. Where
it's not the center of their universe.
Yes, right. And that to me, it's still home, like you said, like it's still home, but everything no longer necessarily revolves around it. I almost feel like home is beginning to revolve around their aspects of life.
And I mean, so many people have dealt with this in their own right.
Sure.
And it was weird for me. But there's such a simpleness too. I picked up my daughter from Poughkeepsie, New York, which is 3.5 hours. I picked her up Wednesday morning, and we came back. And then because of I was doing the pickup and someone else was doing the take back, but then because of unforeseen circumstances, we had to scramble. And I ended up taking her back too. And it sounds like, oh my God, the 3.5 hours in the car with just me and her, just you pick a song, I'll pick a song, you pick a song, talking about stupid stuff, talking about like real world stuff, and then idiotic stuff is unbelievably enjoyable.
Sure.
When, for her time home, now she's only home for 72 hours, but those 7 hours were the best part for us.
Sure.
And then, because once you get spring's different, where are they going for spring break? They coming home for spring break? Are they going somewhere stupid? Or they, it's just weird. It's parenthood is, as a kid, you don't appreciate the emotions that your parents deal with. Your parents are, in a lot of ways, emotionless as a kid. You're so self-absorbed as a teenager.
Sure.
All your parents are doing is trying to ruin your life, and they're trying to take away all your fun.
Sure.
And their goal is to be a wet blanket. And you just don't realize the emotions that parents go through until you become a parent with each kind of passing phase.
Right.
And again, these things aren't really sad. Like I've told people this also as I'm continuing to ramble. As when my oldest daughter, her freshman year of college was the COVID year. And because she was going to Pitt and it was in a metropolitan area, like in central Pennsylvania, like LICO went and, Penn State went and all that.
Sure.
Pitt was more, it was weirder. So she did her first year remotely. And then she went as a sophomore. So she was a little older, a little more mature. She already had grades under her belt and all that stuff. But she loves Pitt. She loves Pittsburgh. And then her sister loves Vassar. And I said, as a parent, when your kid goes away and they're not homesick, part of you feels like, hey, we did a good job. You know, her mom and I really did a good job. But then at the same point, you're like, I wish they were a little homesick.
Sure.
I wish they missed me.
Sure.
And they don't seem like they miss me. They text me when they need something.
Mm.
Hey, can you check in my room? I can't find this. Or what is the number of this card? I can't get it. But so that's a weird thing too. Like, have you heard from your kid? Because I've talked to parents who, like, they talk to their kid every day.
Right.
And I'm like, it'll be like a couple days, 4 days, 5 days. And I'll just be like, hey, just making sure you're alive.
Sure.
And they're like, yep. And that's all I get. So I don't know. That's it. Parenthood's strange. It is. The older I get, the stranger it gets.
I mean, I truly abide by it. And my mom's kind of big on this too. She used to joke and say it all the time. Essentially, like, no news is good news. And so I like, one of the things in my relationship right now, and I think I'll be able to tie this back to your conversation. One of the biggest things in my relationship right now is her and her side are much more emotionally engaged on a daily and weekly basis. So it's not that I'm right or wrong or she's right or wrong. It's just for her, like, talking to those people, texting those people daily, right? Like, seeing those people as much as possible, all of those things is all completely normal. And I will go weeks, like, not hearing from my sister or somebody, right? Like, just people. But the moment I'm in front of them again, it's like time never. Right. It's like time never. And so it is this weird kind of thing where, like, I look at that and it looks exhausting to me. Like, having to reach out to my parents every day so they know I'm alive, as simple as that would have just been like, I guess I'll text them to let them know I'm, you know what I like?
Nah, yeah.
And so it
becomes a chore.
Yes. And I've always said, like, I think one of the challenges that you're describing in parenthood is, like, you want them to want to do those things, but you don't want it to be a chore. You don't want them to feel obligated. The challenge is that you want them. It's like the whole breakup movie where he's like, I thought you wanted me to do dishes. And she's like, no, I don't need you to do this. I want you. And he's like, why would I want to do? It's a little bit like that. Like, I probably don't need you to text me every day that you're alive, but, like, I kind of want you to. And I think that's what you're
I'll tell you one of that's stupid is one of my favorite parts of my one daughter's freshman semester is she called me on election night at like 11:30 because she knew I would be up watching results. Sure. And at her school, you know, Vassar's is small. It's like Cumming or Susquehanna, except it's a little more. It's a little more hoity-toity-ish, and and they have people from everywhere. She has a kid. Did I tell you she has a girl in her dorm from Ukraine?
Oh wow!
And they got her out. Okay. Like, she was a high school senior. They knew she was going to college somewhere, and she's like lived in California until school started. Okay. It's a bizarre story. Yeah. But anyway, they have kids for her. So when she's talking to me over about the elections, and of course we're watching. I think we kind of knew that what's his name, Fetterman, was going to win, and it was the Oz. I can't think. Oh no, we knew Shapiro was going to win. It was the Oz Fetterman that we were watching and all that stuff. And she said, "Yeah, my neighbor, neighbor in the dorm is from Tennessee, and all their races were over 2 hours ago, and she's bored because all the rest of us are watching election results." And so that was cool. But, like, the fact that she called me, and I guess she knew I'd be up. Right. But, like, and we're talking about this. Did you see this race? And did you see this state? And she's like, oh, I got a friend from here, and they're blah, blah, blah. And they were surprised. So that was cool, too, that, like, as a parent, it's just so stupid. But, like, she was going to talk about the election with someone, and she called Dad.
So it's so you'll appreciate the story. I got a flat tire on our way to Thanksgiving dinner. So we actually went to the Wheel
this year.
Yes. So we actually shout out to the Wheel Inn because I know we've talked about the Wheel Inn before. Crushed it again, as always. If you ever get a chance, Wheel Inn.
What? Food or they fixed your tire?
I fixed my tire. The food was great. Meal was great. Service was great. Everything was great.
So they're not like a pit stop. They don't.
Oh no. That's where that was where we have our holidays.
Okay.
We've noticed that if you're fortunate enough to be able to go out on the holidays, no prep, no.
There's a value to it.
It is. you talk about alleviating the stress of the day off of you. I mean, it is, if you're fortunate enough to be able to do it, it is an awesome way to go.
Well, and depending on extended family, like you got a huge family.
Yes.
It's hard to find someone with like you need a barn.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
it is in the winter, in late November, that
Sure.
can be a challenge. So no, I'm with you.
So we go there and I get a flat tire, which we didn't know until we had pulled in. So we like pull in and like my mom's pointing out the window trying to get us to realize we had a back tire that was flat. So we go in, so we're talking about everything. And as we're moving through the meal, my sister at one point kind of said, she's like, are you going to fix it after? Are you going to do whatever? And I said, just give it a second. And then my girlfriend was kind of like, are you going to do the tire, everything else? She's like, are you going to let your dad do it? And in my head, I'm thinking,
you said, I'm going to sit here long enough till my dad does it for me.
And it was funny. Even my own grandmother, my dad's mom, kind of said something along the lines of like, is your dad going to fix the tire? And so I myself, by myself on the side of the highway in New York, I think it was 86 along the bottom outside of Jamestown, I had to change my own tire when I was 20. I wasn't quite 21 yet. So this is something that I have done it. Like I've been on the side of the road by myself, changed a tire. And in my head, I'm thinking to myself, like, he's not going to let me change the tire. Like, I'm not saying I wouldn't have done it. What I'm saying is there is an unbelievable sense of value that I get knowing my father knows how to do it. And I think that my father gets knowing he can do it for me. And I have this weird relationship with my father where I adore the guy. He's one of the best people I know, if not the best guy. Our relationship...
But he likes your sister more.
He does like my sister more. Our relationship is unique in the sense of there's these lines where we don't kind of cross over the other person's knowledge because it's a sense of like, I can do this for you, and it gives me unbelievable value. When I'm able to do something for I hope my dad never learns how to do certain things because the value I get getting to do it for him, and vice versa. I know there's things he really hopes I never truly like don't pick up the phone and call him about those things.
Well, and this too is like a safety aspect.
Yes.
He's like, I know I can get my kid home safely.
Correct.
Because I can do, and it's my daughter, because like I said, I was the pickup, and then someone else was getting her back to school, and then it, the world happened like it does, and she was, unbelievably thankful, and
yes,
I was like, no, this is fun for me.
Correct. But you also had a great sense of value knowing you were able to get her where
I
she
was
needed
helping. I
So
got
here-
to spend
so this
time
is-
with you. None of this sucks for me.
So this is like, as a dude, like as a guy, you're sitting there, and a part of me is like, everybody here is going to watch me help my dad do this tire, and they're going to be like, he made his old man change the tire. And in my head, I'm thinking like, I also understand the unbelievable value of every time I need to know something about a car, I call my dad, or anytime I need to. And I know there is a huge sense of pride for him knowing that like he brings that value to me. Just like when I cut his hair or I fix the technology that like I hope he never learns how to do his own technology.
Well, I'll tell you that, and this is from a guy who, is 51, lives with his mom. There are lots of people. If my mom just turned 79 on Friday, and people are like, I can't believe your mom does this. I can't believe your mom does that. I can't believe. And it's like, my mom is still, she's in really good health for a 79-year-old.
Sure.
And she doesn't want to sit on the couch and watch TV all day.
Right.
She wants to do stuff. She wants to participate. She wants to help.
Sure.
And there are lots of things in it. She's like, no, I can do it. And I want her to do things. But then again, you hear people from the outside, because there would be people like, to your dad, oh, let Jeff change. He's like, I can change the tire.
Sure.
Why can I? And of course, your dad is a lot like my dad in this aspect. Where like my kid would screw it up, so I'm going to change the tire just because if he does it, it'll roll off the.
So the two funny aspects to this was, one, we're at the wheel in, which for those who don't know where the wheel in is, middle, it's kind of the middle of nowhere. It's
up 287.
It's up to no. If you're on 15, you're getting off the Roaring Branch exit towards Canton. If that's 287, I apologize. I thought
No.
287
287 is. So what is it on 14?
Yes.
Oh, it's on 14.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
Okay. So it's the middle of nowhere. There's like 20 people at our Thanksgiving dinner. Well, of course, everyone starts filing out at the end of the meal. This is high entertainment. I mean, there's literally 18 people standing around, like kind of like putting in their 2 cents, watching. We're like taking pictures like of it. Like this was the entertainment of the day in Roaring Branch, Pennsylvania. But the other part of it is, like you said, it is like that mindset where like I went out, like I helped him pick up the tire, like I was holding stuff, like it wasn't like he.
Well, you picked up the front end of the Jeep.
That's what it was. We didn't have a jack. I just
so
went
you
to
just
the back
you just curled it.
No, we had a jack. So it is. There's something about. I don't want to say letting your parents do things, because my parents have carried me far more than what a normal set of parents should have to carry someone. However, there is a sacrifice to letting your parents do things for you at the risk of other people judging, at the risk of other people having an opinion of like, I can't believe, like you kind of hinted at it, like, I can't believe you let your dad do this or you let your mom do that. I don't know though, because on the flip side, I feel like there's things that I do that most people would never. Like I think it was like 8 years straight, I cut my dad's hair like every 3 weeks. And I don't know a lot of people that, like drive up, do it. So I just, it's a weird thing.
It is simple, because I remember, like my grandmother, used to do, when my brother was young, because how long's my grandmother been passed away? My grandmother was in her 80s,
right?
And he might have been young married couple or whatever, and she would go out like once in a while and do their laundry.
Okay.
And you would think like he was young in the big leagues, but he was in the big leagues. You're like, your 80-year-old grandmother is coming to do your laundry.
Yeah.
And he's like, she gets mad if we don't let her help. She wants to do something.
Sure.
And she won't come if she doesn't have anything to do.
Sure.
Because she doesn't want to just come sit here, because then she feels like she's bothering us.
Sure.
So she comes, and this way she gets to visit, and she hangs out. And what, like laundry, you dump it in.
Right.
You put it to the dryer.
Right.
Some stuff, the fancy stuff, you hang if you don't want it. But so then she would come and spend 3 or 4 or 5 hours once every couple, and she would hang out.
Sure.
And then, she didn't get paid, but she got really nice Christmas gifts.
Sure.
One year, I think it had 4 tires and a steering wheel.
There you go.
But, and you're just like, so on the surface, you'd be like, why do you let your grandmother do it? Well, it's really letting Graham come hang out with us, because she wouldn't do it another way. And it makes her feel happy. She doesn't feel like just a tag along.
Sure.
And it's people just, there are lots of,
this was the other aspect of it too, because I was thinking about how different a son's, how different that situation is for a son versus how different that situation is for a daughter. Because for me, I'm sitting there and I'm kind of like, everyone's kind of waiting to see how this plays out. And I'm thinking to myself, like, if I was a daughter or if it happened to my sister, I mean, this is what
they would just try to get out of the way.
No one's even thinking about this. Like, this isn't even a thing that's happening. And so I'm not implying like my sister wouldn't have helped. I'm not even implying trust me, my sister would have got down on her knees and fixed the tire. Like, I'm not implying that. I'm just saying though, like the mental gymnastics, like like the next 2 hours of kind of like the situation, completely different if you're a son or a daughter. And that I was kind of like, wow, that's so for someone with 2 daughters, like I would wonder if Jimmy has to go back to college, if Jimmy goes 3-4 hours away, the dynamics of asking you from his point of view are completely different than the dynamics of your daughters asking you. Not that he wouldn't ask you. It's just the mental gymnastics that he has to go through to then decide whether or not to ask you are completely different from the perspectives of society.
Yes. And I just know the simple, when as a parent, especially as your kids get older and older, and like I've said this a million times, well, not a million, that was an exaggeration.
Right.
But my generation is the first generation that were both dumber than our parents and dumber than our kids. Because our kids, when we were young, our parents knew more about everything than we did, except Atari and television.
Sure.
But now, with all the technology in the world, our kids know the technology so much better than we do. So you're just looking for a place in life where you can help. And when I can help, give a ride, and this came down like Saturday morning,
Right.
and I was like, all right, here are our options, because I got, we have a scrimmage tomorrow, so we can go tonight, we can go tomorrow, we'll go. But when you can help, it's, and as you get older and older, I think, and I'm 51, but I can see it with my mom and with my dad, who are both 79 now.
Sure.
Whenever there's something that comes along that they can help, they're happy to help.
Right.
Because they used to be asked to help all the time when their kids were toddlers, and we were annoying because we need help constantly. And now they just, everyone loves to feel helpful and useful.
No, there's a huge value to it.
It is. And that as I've gotten older, I've gotten better with the money thing. About when people like, here, take the money. You're like, no,
Sure.
And, there's some that like, they feel good giving it to you.
Right.
And then you can do whatever you want with it. You can give it back. You can buy them something. You can go blow up. But like the days of arguing with my aunt when she's like, oh, here, I'll buy dinner.
Right.
I got it. No, I'll buy it. Okay, I'm not arguing anymore. I'll do it. Because she feels good about it.
Sure.
She feels good that she got to buy dinner. And,
sure.
I'm driving way across town to pick it up. I'm putting in my effort too.
No, it's a good point. Heather said, just to wrap up the conversation, there comes a point where you have to let your parents do some things so they still have that feeling of being needed. That was super important to my mother before she passed. There you go.
It is. Just everyone likes to feel helpful.
My favorite thing is when someone sums up what we just talked about for 25 minutes
in a sentence.
In two perfect
sentences.
No
one likes that. That's why.
No, in two perfect sentences, they basically sum up what we did in 25 minutes. So that's good.
Well, that would be like a TikTok.
Do you want to save the Heinz lawsuit for tomorrow?
Yes, let's save the lawsuit.
Okay, we can save
I wanted to mention this before it gets lost, because you had mentioned up Route 14 towards Canton.
Yeah.
Canton.
Yeah.
Has a shot at Shamokin. I did not know that. That's a close. I thought it was further than that. Friday night at Shamokin, Canton has a real shot.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
And then Southern Columbia's back. That one, they two big injuries, one of them healed, and it has certainly changed the dynamics of their team.
I don't feel justified from the conversation we had earlier in the year, but I think it comes back to, I think sometimes people overvalue talents, and they just kind of, this is weird because you clearly need your best players to perform at the best level. Like, I think we all know that as coaches and spectators and parents and yada, yada. However, I think what a lot of people don't realize is like seasons are long. We call, like, a lot of coaches refer to their seasons as journeys. Do you ever refer to your season as a journey? When you're talking to the
I say enjoy the journey.
There you go. Right. But it's a journey. Like, the point is like we're going from A to B. And I think sometimes A to B on the outside seems very close. When you're in it every day, it's just, it can feel like a year. One season can feel like a year when you're like really into it. And I just think people undervalue the process and like what is implemented at a program that is consistently successful. And obviously you got to have, again, you need talent. Those two kids coming back shows that you need talent. I'm not saying you don't. What I'm saying though is like a steady program, a good program will find a way to just keep the ship going straight. So that way, when it's ready to take off, it's still there. There's a lot of programs where, like, if you lose your two best players, that thing sinks. Like, it goes off. The season is a waste. It's no longer something that's salvageable. I always felt like Southern Columbia's season was always going to be salvageable.
Well, how about also the aspect of the people in charge, from Roth down to his staff? They have been through it enough to not panic.
Correct.
And just to be like, even though that, like, this isn't what we want, and we're dealing with something unique because we have multiple losses and we have these big injuries, and in June, this isn't what we thought our team was going to be.
Sure.
But still, they're veteran enough and just even adult enough not to panic. And because there are a lot of when the kids are getting like this,
Sure.
sometimes if the adults get like this, then everything just implodes.
Right.
But if the adults are like, just we're okay, it'll be okay.
Right.
And so yeah, it's been a neat story. And the neat part for me is outside of Katowice and Elysburg, nobody roots for Southern Columbia.
Right.
Because they've been so good,
Right.
everyone's jealous. And now I think this year people are like, when they saw Southern won big, people were like, oh, they're kind of like, oh, good for them.
Yeah.
And this will be, if they win again, probably the most, they will have more cheers from the surrounding area than they've ever had.
And not only will they have more cheers, they will also, it's hard to explain it. I think there's years where they probably feel like they earned it, but it was easier than the year before, or it was easier than the year after. I would imagine their staff, their kids are going to feel like this one was earned if they pull it off. Like they and again, it's kind of, we just had like a 30-minute conversation about value, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if they're able to pull this off, there will be an immense value felt in that room. I just more so than maybe any other.
And the funny thing too, I would suspect that there are people, the people who just read the headlines and don't, that they'll look at it and be, they lost 3 times. This is a bad year. This was their worst state championship team, or all these. They'll throw these negative attributes. Whereas even the coaching staff may be like, this might be our proudest.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Even though, and people are like, oh, they're only, I don't know. People just think that the only thing to be proud about is greatness. And like I know in my first year coaching last year, when we started 0-4, and we had a couple close ones that we could have won. We had some ugly, whatever. And just, because everyone goes into the season right now, nobody's played yet. No wrestlers have wrestled yet. No basketball teams have dribbled a real, with scoreboards on and cheerleaders jumping and referees there, and everyone's optimistic. And then you go out, and on opening night, half the teams are 0-1, and they're just like, ugh. And then to go 0-2, 0-3, 0-4, and all of a sudden, like, air can leave the sails really quick.
Sure.
And then we turn around 1-4 in a row, and we beat some good teams. And it's not always that easy to keep the ship afloat.
I would argue it's more important than X's and O's.
I would agree.
I cannot tell you how many times I told a kid to stay on the boat. I mean, it's the most important thing for 75-80% of your season, is just trying to keep the front of the boat heading in the direction it needs to.
How many times you tell a kid to get the hell off the boat?
This
is our boat, and you're not invited anymore.
Get off of it.
Walk the plank.
It's a fair point.
We should work that terminology in. I think it's time for you to walk the plank.
Walk the plank. Time for you to head out.
So Canton is Friday. I don't know when Southern is.
I'm not sure when Southern is.
I think Southern's Saturday, but don't quote me.
It's all this weekend.
Yeah.
So, I did want to mention to you, Penn State's going to end in the top 10.
They're in the top 10 now, aren't they?
Yes, I believe they're number 8, depending on which poll you look at. 10-2, played tough against Ohio State. I don't think they played tough against Michigan. I think
that game against Michigan.
I think that halftime score was a little bit of a fluke.
But when you see what Michigan just did to Ohio State at Ohio State, how about this? The last time Michigan won at Ohio State, Tom Brady had not taken an NFL snap yet.
Yeah. You want to talk about how other programs need to look at Michigan and like really sit back and say, like, maybe we should have some patience, because there's a lot of programs that after the first 3 or 4 years of Harbaugh, they would have been like, this isn't what we signed up for.
The funny thing is, though, you look back through, he was going like 9-2.
I know, we talked about that.
It's not like he was 5-6.
Yeah.
They thought he took Stanford to new levels. He took the 49ers to the Super Bowl. He's going to come in here in 20 minutes. We're going to be playing for a national championship. Yeah. It took longer than 20 minutes.
Yeah.
But he wasn't awful. But yes, Wisconsin just hired a new coach. The guy from Cincinnati is now Finkel is going to Wisconsin, and local guy Matt Rule, who's a state college guy who'd been fired by Carolina, just signed with Nebraska. And when you look at the the Michigan States and the Wisconsins and the teams that have been there. Iowa's 7-5, and all the Florida schools. Florida State. I know Florida State's but they're not. Texas A&M has now had a dreadful year, and they're talking about they're stuck with Jimbo Fisher and all these things. There's lots of teams that would kill to have the terrible program that Penn State has.
Yes.
Lots of teams. They are a top 15 program in America. And I know everyone wants them to be Ohio State and Alabama and Clemson, and it's just not that easy. And they're trying, and they're close.
Yes. They would be. They had a couple of brackets. Like if they had the 12-team one, they would be in an 8-9. One had them with Utah, and then I think another one had them because they're trying to predict what's going to happen in the conference title games.
Right.
But one had them with Utah, and I don't know. Like to me, like if they had a 12-team bracket, Penn State's the 8 seed, and they get to host a bowl game, and that you
look
pretty good.
USC's back.
Yeah,
they're back.
Well,
they were gone for a decade.
Yeah. The USC thing, because you and I were debating USC for a while, that's going to drive me nuts because they're probably going to get in. And I don't think they should be in.
Who else is going to make it?
Ohio State could make it. If you're Ohio State, see, this is okay, but this is the problem. And you're proving my point for me, and I'm so happy you just did that. The recency bias that is going to be shown, it's going to be on full display here. Because if you're Ohio State, and depending on what happens, Michigan could be number 1 in the country. I would make the argument Michigan probably should be number 1 over Georgia. Not because I'm saying they're better than Georgia, but because I'm saying what they just did to Ohio State, I would argue maybe they should be 1. Georgia doesn't have a win that good.
Yeah, I can see that.
Okay, so now if you're Ohio State, you have 1 loss, and your only loss is to arguably the number 1 or number 2 team in the country. And instead, you're going to have a USC in, or you're going to have somebody, like, it just doesn't make sense. It's complete recency bias. Now, this is under the assumption USC's got to beat Utah. TCU has to beat Baylor. I forget who TCU is going to play in the Big 12, but.
Okay, here's the problem now. And I get it. The only ranked teams that Ohio State beat all year, they beat Notre Dame, who back at the time was number 5 in the country, but we know that Notre Dame's clearly not one of the top 5 teams in the country. They beat them by 11 back on September 3rd. Since then, they beat Arkansas State, Toledo, Wisconsin, Rutgers, Michigan State, Iowa. They beat Penn State 44-31 on the road. Then they beat Northwestern, who can't get out of their own way, Indiana, Maryland, and they got crushed by Michigan.
Their strength of schedule is like 54.
The Big Ten really let them down because the Big Ten sucks this year outside of those 3 teams.
Yes, I also think those 3 teams are really, really good.
They are, but
I think that.
But there's nobody else that's even like.
It's so funny because you read that off, and to me, it says more about the strength of the top of the Big Ten than it says about the middle or the bottom of the Big Ten.
I mean, somebody out. I mean, who's coming out of the West? Purdue. It was almost Iowa. They're like 7-5, and Purdue. I mean, come on.
But here's again what you go back to is like, if it's not Ohio State, you're going to tell me that it's a USC team who really has like TCU and USC have skated by this entire season. If you go through their schedules, the amount of
but they're a team of destiny.
If the amount of 1-score wins on both of those schedules is out of this world. It can't be Alabama. It can't be Penn State. It can't be LSU. It can't, like, essentially what you're left with is you're going to have to decide if you're going to like reward a USC or a TCU for barely winning every game on their schedule, or if you're going to reward Ohio State for pummeling what you believe is a mediocre Big Ten and only having 1 loss to the number 1 or number 2 team in the country. I would rather reward Ohio State and then reward a TCU or a USC for skating by.
Yeah, but as TCU skated by,
by the way, do you know who has the highest strength of schedule out of the top 10?
No, I'm thinking.
It's TCU. Depending on what metric you use,
okay.
TCU you could make the argument that TCU has had the hardest strength of schedule.
Well, at the time, and I know, things have changed. I go back through. They beat 4 ranked teams in a row.
Mm-hmm.
Only one of them was on the road, and that was Kansas. Then they won at Texas 17-10. I don't know. They're a great story. They beat number 8 Oklahoma State at the time in double overtime they're just a great story.
Mm.
And we don't need another Ohio State and they lost by 22 at home.
Well,
you can't get blown out at home.
The pandemonium is going to come because there's TCU could lose. This conference championship weekend is very unique in the sense that I don't necessarily bank on these teams. USC could lose their conference title very easily. They could lose to Utah. TCU could lose their conference title. You could have a situation where you're going to have 3 or 4 of the top 5 teams in the country coming off of losses. And now what do you?
No, I know. I'm with you. Just please TCU win. Please. Wouldn't it be great not to have Ohio State, Alabama, or Clemson in the Final Four? Wouldn't that be great?
Well, just refreshing. Sure.
Oh,
this is
the other argument with putting Ohio State in.
Mm.
Michigan went to Ohio State, beat Ohio State in Michigan by 22 points.
Mm.
Michigan shouldn't have to prove it again.
No, my only devil's advocate to you would be, what if those are the 2 best teams in the country?
Then the championship's over and we'll crown them right now.
You can't. Okay, so then let me.
It's not fair that Michigan should have to beat them twice and Ohio State gets a warm-up game and then gets to beat them once.
There are teams across the country that are having to beat the same team twice just to win the conference championship. Why would it not be fair to have to do it to win the national championship?
Because it doesn't make any sense. Because, some of them, you'd have to go look at each individual case. If it was on the road, then no. It wasn't neutral field. It wasn't at home. They went to the Horseshoe and kicked the snot out of them.
Okay, so here's where your thing doesn't work, because USC is going to have to go play Utah.
Okay.
So if Utah loses, should they be punished because they had to go beat USC again and didn't?
Hold on. Did they play already?
Yes.
Oh, they beat them by a point.
Correct. And now Utah has to play USC again.
So
would you punish Utah if they lost to USC?
Well, wait, hold on. Let me respond. They played one time. It was at Utah. USC lost by 1 point.
None of those details matter.
It does. Because now they get to play on an.
What you're saying is if you've already played in the regular season, to then have to defend that win in something as small as a football schedule.
Depending on where it was.
Depending on what you want to have happen.
No, I mean, home and away is a big deal. Home and away is a big deal. In college football, home and away is a big deal. If you lose at home, you don't get a rematch. I
think the NCAA is in a really tight spot right now because I think every team out of the top 5, I don't think you can put Alabama in. Regardless of what happens in these conference championships, Alabama can't get in.
Nope.
Penn State cannot get in.
Nope.
LSU cannot get in.
Nope.
Tennessee, because of the quarterback, they're going to do everything they can to make sure Tennessee does not get in because they're going to know this is not the team that just played for 11 weeks. So I think if you're the NCAA, you're looking at this and you're going, crap, we really can't put in anybody else other than USC and Ohio State. And again, I'm sitting here telling you, I don't really think USC deserves it. And you're sitting here telling me, I don't really think Ohio State should get the chance. And one